We started this journey out over, oh my gosh, 12 years ago, the fashion and beauty blog. I dragged Stevie into it.
And I was so glad to actually find another husband and that we can relate.
All of our hearts have changed so much towards our marriage, our family, our faith. Whereas when we met, it was all about the grind.
And how do you guys manage working together?
People are like, what do y'all fight about? Like, really?
Word.
We've had to make pivots, gauge the temperature of our home and be like, okay, what do we need as a family?
We want to be in a proactive mindset.
It's like working out the muscle in your marriage. It's, keep it in shape.
Hey guys, I'm Brittany Xavier.
And I'm Anthony Xavier.
And you're listening to The Long Game. I want to know, brief intro of how you guys met, and then we can jump into how you guys started your business together.
Wow. Well, similar to you guys, we do, manage business and babies together. But once upon a time ago, Stevie, those blue sparkly eyes, I remember at the University of North Texas.
Let's go back really quick to what do you guys do for a living?
Oh,
for those of you guys who don't know who Stevie and Sazan is.
To answer your question, y'all, we are managing business and babies. Like we said, we started this journey out over, oh my gosh, 12 years ago. What started off as a fashion and beauty blog for me. I dragged Stevie into it. We were engaged and I was like, this thing is like, I think it's legit. Like, let's figure this out. I think it's lucrative. And I remember I was like, please take my photos. And,
I was so bad. I was so bad at taking pics. Anthony and I have talked about this, but like when we started working together, I just remember you were starting to get, these jobs with Target and it was like a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. And you were like, we can make this like a legit thing if you work with me. And at the time I was in LA, like trying to be an actor. And I was like, no, I'm like an actor. And she was like, it's not really panning out. I think if you help me, we could actually make some legit money.
No, I said, while you're, chasing these sweet auditions, we can kind of hustle this thing out and see. And I remember one of the things we did early on is we created this little PowerPoint presentation and went after like mom and pop shops on Etsy because I said, I know that there are brands on Etsy that would love to be promoted with my 10K followers on Instagram. Like, this is a thing. Social media is the new wave of advertisement. I saw that and I was like, let's go after the mom and pops. So we started going after these Etsy shops. They would give us extra products so that I could do giveaways, which helped me grow even more. And then we have no business experience, especially at this time. And remember, we created like 3 tiers, silver, gold, platinum, if you want to work with us. And I remember at the time, the top of the top was like, you get all things like, you get a blog feature, you get a giveaway on my Instagram page at the time, and then all the stuff. Like, it was like $500 for all of that. And what we started quickly noticing was a lot of these mom and pop shops were like, we'll do the highest thing. And I said, Steve, I think we're actually like, we probably need to like, and obviously it is. Then we got more exposure because we were able to show brands, they know how to sort of market and work with this digital media thing. So it was kind of this learn as we go thing. And then we just grew organically.
And you had YouTube. I knew that you were really good with your YouTube right in the beginning too when I met you.
Yeah, I started.
How did you know to just start it all?
I always told Stevie, because we had a degree in radio, television, film, like I was like, we should probably use this degree for good. And we loved the whole idea of storytelling. We loved videos and editing. And at the time when Instagram wasn't really a video platform, we just sort of felt, it's very intuitive. It's crazy. Like, the blog was working and we were sharing things and it was great, but there was something I enjoyed about visual. It was easier for me to stand in front of a camera in a way and retrain the way in which I spoke to the camera, because in college I was learning more from a reporter standpoint. We would do news packs and you'd have to learn how to report live. And so my voice, I had to learn how to just talk normal, like you're talking to a friend. I enjoyed more of that creative storytelling visually with video. So I said, let me just try a YouTube channel. Loved fashion and beauty. And I said, I'm going to channel that creativity into beauty. For me at the time, there wasn't tons of like Middle Eastern girls with my olive skin tone doing tutorials on what foundation shades to pick and how to style your hair, your curly textured hair. So I think a lot of girls would stumble upon my YouTube channel from Google searching like things for like beginners, whatever. And so I think that's how I started growing organically. And then I just needed more manpower. It's like, Stevie, I just cannot do this alone. And so we saw a lot of growth. And then of course, we became more lifestyle driven as our personalities.
It was just really funny because
center stage.
we just pieced everything together. Sazan definitely had a vision for what she was doing, much like I'm sure you did. But like I was her manager for like a while, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. At first, I remember closing like our first deal. And I remember it went from like, we were making like hundreds and then it was like multiple thousands. And I was like, Saz, I just closed like a $9,000 deal. She was like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like,
I don't know what I'm doing, but we're figuring it out.
And then do you remember, Steve? He would flip a switch because he started doing videos with me. Like we would do funny skits and things. And he's like in a wig in my YouTube video, just being a goof. And then in like 2 hours later, he's on a call with the brand and they're like, hey, we actually saw that video of you in the wig. And he's trying
the
to
same
know.
Guy? Like, there's many different parts of me.
There's Steve and then there's Stevie.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You're talking to Steve.
Can you manage
right
me?
I'm like, are they taking us seriously, babe? We felt like we were figuring it all out. It was so intimidating at first.
And how do you guys manage working together? Because I know that's something that not all couples do. Not all couples work 24/7 together. And that's why I feel like we connect, because both our husbands are so involved and started it together.
And I was so glad to actually find another husband that was experiencing the same struggles and that we can relate and talk to each other. Hey, man, are you, you're going through this? Like, yes. I'm like, okay, so I'm not the only one.
You know what's hilarious is every time we'd visit, I mean, obviously we've visited LA since moving. And every time we go there,
they currently live in Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah, we're in Austin right now. We left LA like 7 years ago. It's crazy to think how every time we do visit for work or whatever, you and Anthony always have a little bromance date. Like you guys are always going and grabbing a drink. Like over the years, you guys have like been so good at continuing to like stick together.
I think this is I think I'm going to say that this is like guys' superpower.
And I think one of the biggest things that we connected on was our faith. So I love how open you guys would share your faith in God. And Anthony and I are Christians, but just having when we get together, we're talking about how God's working in our lives, what we're praying about. And I feel like that really connects us as friends too.
Yeah.
And why I want our kids to grow up friends. But
I know. And well, that was the coolest thing for us being in. So we, visited California this summer. We just were like, yo, it's too hot in Texas. We want to get out. So we hunkered down in Laguna Beach for a couple months and we hung out with you guys and just getting to all connect. And now we have kids and it's been like 4 or 5 years since we lived in LA and so much has changed. But what's so cool is that what I've realized is that when God brings people into your life that share the same values and faith, et cetera, it's so strange, but you can go years, months without seeing these people. And what's interesting is that when you have a conversation about what's important to you, it seems to naturally align. And I'm seeing that with different relationships I have. And so the same thing with us this summer when we all went to the park and we were just hanging out. It was like, wow, like all of our hearts have changed so much towards our marriage, our family, our faith, you know what I mean? And just how important all of those things are to us. Whereas when we met, when we were first hanging out, it was all about the grind. It was like, everything was like
just
content
trying to get by,
first, trying to survive.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was really cool to us.
We love that you guys are so like-minded, but the fact that you guys also work together, like since we've lived in Austin, like it's hard to find, other creative entrepreneurs, let alone couples who actually do life and business together. And so for us, real talk, like that is the one and only area where Steve and I probably at times have seen the most friction.
Sure.
Like, when people are like, what do y'all fight about? Like, really?
Work.
That is always because of work. It's and so we've had to make pivots in our business. There was a season and a time where we were actually like growing a brand like in a business together. And we realized, is this robbing our joy and our peace in our marriage? And therefore we were like, we need to pivot again. This doesn't feel right. And so we've had to really protect our marriage at all costs, even at times from our business working relationship, because
so important.
It can be intense.
Well, and I would just add to that, I think with Saz and I, what we discovered, so I would say like the dynamics in which we've worked together was, like I said, Sazan was a blogger and I was managing her and taking her photos for a while. And then it was like, dude, I can't take your photos anymore. We're going to kill each other. So then we hired a photographer and it was like, okay, cool. But then I was still like editing her videos and setting up her YouTube stuff and doing all of that. Meanwhile, just kind of doing a smorgasbord of things. Like I was like the manager for her manager because he would like call me and be like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, that's ridiculous. We're not doing that. You know, so it was like that kind of stuff.
So many touch points.
And then it turned into like, you know, the podcast and the book. And Saz and I realized we have very similar skills, but just different views on things. So whether it's like our podcast or creative ideas, like we would get like when we used to podcast together, we get so mad at each other. Be like, how could you think that's a good idea? Be like, well, what's your idea? Be like, oh, that's horrible. And what we realize is like, you have good ideas, but they're unique to what you want to do. And I have good ideas and unique to what I want to do. And so while we got to do all of that stuff, it actually did refine us. It did refine us in our relationship. But I would say that now we're at a point too where we still work together. We still do certain things together, but we're now on this course or this path where we want to support each other in the things that we're really passionate about on our own. And that's okay.
I would love to know, like, what is the way that you guys do prioritize your marriage?
We start with a 30-second hug every day. That sounds so
I love that.
But it actually wasn't. It started off as a joke,
Sazan,
and it actually was like, whoa.
Sazan started that, and what's so funny, guys, is my love language is like physical touch,
and mine is acts of service.
But she suggested it, and so like, of course, I want a 30. Like inside, I want like a 30. I would love that. Great. But there was like this weird resistance where it was also like, I'm like a dude, and I don't need a hug, you know. But it's like, come here, big baby. Like, you know, you want this. And Saz would be like, come on, we're going to hug. And I was just like, just kind of sit there. It was almost like, have you seen Step Brothers? It's a little awkward at first. They're like struggling to hug each other, but then we'd embrace. And I sit there and what I noticed, and I told her this, I said, what's so strange is as we're like literally sitting there just kind of like, I like always sigh, like this really deep sigh. I like, I just start relaxing and I'm more just kind of like leaning over her. But what I told her, I said, what's so crazy is that what I realized my processing that I'm not even, it's like subconscious. I told you, I said, what's so crazy is that this thing came out in me where I was like, I can trust you, which is so weird. I would never, but just the things that I discovered in those 30 seconds, especially the first like 5 times we did it, I was like, wow. I was like, Saz cares about me. I can trust you. I felt good. I felt safe. I felt like on the same page.
Another thing that we have implemented is that having 3 kids, going from 2 to 3, I was like, whoa, but it actually forced us to, again, reprioritize, make those changes, gauge the temperature of our home and be like, okay, what do we need as a family? What is the vibe here? So what we noticed was like, we have to schedule date nights. We see it as, from a biblical, traditional worldview, for us, our marriage is at the top, right? And then our kids. So like if mom and dad are watering that seed and making that time, you're only going to be that example of love for your kids because you are the first example of what love looks like for your children. And we can just tell when we're in a drought, like it feels like, oh, I feel like I haven't talked to you lately or life has just been so busy. Well, let's just get a date night in and reconnect.
And we really definitely, I would say after Oliver was born, our third, we went through like a drought where it was just like, we're missing each other. We're busy. We're exhausted, XYZ. Like if you're living real life, you know what that feels like.
It's hard.
And I think it's easy to get bitter. It's easy to stop communicating. It's easy to let a wedge come between you, you know, just on simple things. It's just like, we're just not spending time. We're just not being intimate, you know, and that definitely, we felt the weight of that, you know, with all the work that we were doing, especially after we had Oliver. 3 months later, a book came out. So it was just like, it's too much. Like it's all too much. We need to like slow down. We need to breathe. We need to like get back to the basics and not try and do everything. And something that one of my mentors told me this summer, even, he told me 2 really good things. He said, what's your marriage maintenance like? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, what's your maintenance plan? He's like, you need to have a maintenance plan. He said, so he gave me a few things. So I want to share them right here. He said, we have it, we called 6 and 6. He's like, whenever we do marriage counseling, we tell people do 6 and 6. Every 6 months, you go away for 2 days. The first night you talk about the 6 months past. And it's usually a little harder. You're really honest. You go out, you have food. You say like, so what happened in the last 6 months? What did I do? What did I not do? You know, what are things I can work on? You both share those things. He goes, and then the next night you talk about the next 6 months. You forecast like, okay, how can we take that information, bring that into the next 6 months and be better for each other? And I was like,
dream together.
Yeah, it happens twice a year. And I was like, that's really cool. He said, so that's one. He said, number two, I always recommend counseling of some sort, like even just as a maintenance, like set it up for every like 4 to 6 months
and
too.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We have people, I tell people that and they're like, well, what's going on? What's going on in your marriage?
Yeah.
I'm like, nothing. I'm so preventative when it comes to how we view everything, how we view our health, how we view our family. Like we want to be in a proactive mindset.
It's like working out the muscle in your marriage. It's just you guys want to condition and you want to, you know, keep it in shape.
Well, I want to add this last one. This one I thought was really important. He was like, when I came home and they had 5 kids, he's like, when I came home, I would tell my kids, I'm spending time with your mom and she's first. And you guys can play for a little bit. But I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to hang out with your mom. And he was like, when you do that, when you actually put each other first, not just say it like, oh, your mom is first or whatever, but when you actually physically do it, your kids respond in such a way that they actually feel a lot more security.
Right.
By loving your spouse, you are actually even by extension loving your kids.
Okay, I would love to know, how do you handle the pressure of social media and public life while also maintaining your authenticity? And just keeping your family as a core too.
We're in a 24/7 industry where it is so easy and almost necessary to stay plugged in. You have to constantly be on call to these platforms. And so for us, Stevie and I have realized whenever we have tried to keep up with the rat race and the pace, or, you know, when we've tried to post things based off of what we think, oh, we should be posting, it just does not, it's like a shoe that doesn't, like it doesn't fit. But what we have found is when we can find that healthy balance of interweaving what's actually going on in the season of life that we're going through with the content and figuring out how do we want to storytell through the content, that has felt the most authentic to us. Like, oh, I'm enjoying this. It doesn't feel like work. And it allows me to go into it and be a little bit more strategic so that come 4:30 every day, we do turn it off because we're like, we have kids, we want to cook dinner, just being smart. Like, let's work smarter, not harder now that we have 3 kids and their schedules to keep up with.
What's one tip that you think has really helped you do that?
I have to sit, Stevie, you know me, I have to sit with my planner every single Sunday.
And I think it's too just
plan
time.
the week out. I have to plan the week out.
Which lends itself to like time management. I think you have to know like, okay, if my kids are going to school till 2:30, well, then if I'm not getting everything done, then I need to get up earlier, or I just need to be more focused, like whatever that is, because it is so important for us to spend time with our kids. Like I have so much dad guilt, and I look at my dad who was not around, you know, he was working, like he was a carpenter and we weren't doing well financially. So like he had to be out working. And then when he was home, he was doing estimates. And so he wasn't around, but I'm able to be around my kids just like you are. And as a dad, I really love that. But at the same time, I love being able to work and provide. So it is a thing where you really have to balance both. And it's like, if you have a new dream or a new goal that you want to work on, whether it's a podcast or a book or whatever, that also has to have some measure of balance. It's a ton of communication between Sazan and I. It's bettering our time management, which is something that we've struggled with for sure. And just adhering to a schedule that works for our whole family, because it's like our kids are in this precious time of life where they really want to be around us. I love that. I love being with my kid.
I think the biggest part in all this, especially working in this industry, is knowing what your purpose is. As long as you have that in your focus, then when you do have those struggles, those down moments, you can revert back and be like, I'm doing this for my kids. Yeah. Why are we doing this? Doing it for the kids, doing it to be great parents, have more time with them. And that kind of re-energizes you to, okay, let's move through this. And then
something I admired about you guys all the time was, I remember there were seasons where you and Anthony would be like, okay, we're going to dial in and this is going to be a season. We're going to be like on top of like really executing content. And you would just like knock it out. Like you guys were such a duo with that. And as much as Stevie and I really in our minds were like, yeah, we're going to like really focus this season on like, we're going to be batch creating content. Crazy. It's almost like 2 days later, we're like, yeah, I'm tired. I don't know. I can't.
We
like,
always were like, Brittany and Anthony have the
you guys were
ability
always
to
the people,
power through.
Y'all
I don't know how
so
they're doing it, but they are
disciplined.
doing it.
Yeah, whether it's like y'all's meal planning and measuring the meal, like you guys are so admirable for that, because you guys both are on this, like you both understand this is the temporary plan of attack. We're dialed in. We're going to get it done so that, again, we can enjoy the time freedom of working for ourselves and giving ourselves to our children ultimately. And so I need to know from you guys, genuinely, we need the feedback. Like, what do you guys do to stay so on top of, clearly you guys are crushing like your TikTok game and all of that. Like, did you guys have a strategy going into all of that? Like, we're going to dial in and we're going to plan everything out? Or was it just kind of, we're going to do this as we go? Like,
I think at the beginning we stumbled through it. Things were doing well. And so you kind of learn as you go when it's a new platform, especially. But now I'm very good about batching. So I still have my 2 film days. And that has been really helpful. Usually what I do is on Mondays, I'll have like my creative planning. So I'll plan, like you said, how you were planning the week. I'll do that. So that's on days when I'm not getting ready. And then the other 2 days I'm filming. And that's been really helpful.
I feel like you're very ahead of it. And when you want to do something, you really dive in, you strategize, you listen to podcasts. And me, I'm like the utility guy. I mean, my love language is acts of service. So I'm like, whatever you need to get to point A to B, just tell me.
Always figure it out.
I'll figure it out. I'll do the work. And I feel like that's how we
gosh.
work so well, because she's like, oh, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, I can figure it out. I'm just the power behind it.
I love when I know something new and I just want to know all the facts and the best. I'm a best practices person.
Yeah.
I love to know what the best practice is. What are the people at the top doing? And
What time do you like to shoot your content? Because you're going to laugh at me when I tell you mine.
you do not. Do you shoot it really late?
I don't know what's going on with me the first half of the day. I actually don't even know if
We don't
I'm
know
a
how to shoot
human
content in the morning.
at that.
We don't know how to-
It feels very
I
weird to
can't do
me.
it.
Like,
So,
I can't do it in the morning.
I used to be a really big night owl. And before we had Elliot, we realized, I got an Oura ring, which tracks your sleep. And what's that saying you always say? When you track something,
What's getting measured can be managed.
right.
Ooh,
So we thought
Anthony.
our sleeps were terrible, even going into having Elliot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to have a new baby.
Oh,
We need to
gosh.
figure this out.
Yeah.
So we got the Oura ring. I'm telling you, it made me go to bed so much earlier because I realized I was on my screens late, overstimulated. So we stopped getting on the screens 2 to 3 hours before bed. Typically, it's 2 hours where it's like plugged in outside of the room. We're not on the phone. And that made a huge difference in my sleep. And that has been so helpful. So even when we first had Elliot, we would go to bed at literally 8:30. The kids were in bed by 7:30. We were in bed. And it did take me like 45 minutes still to fall asleep when I first was doing it because I wasn't tired.
Yes.
Then I would start to get up a lot earlier. It's a huge game changer. Good sleep is
So then
the
you
best
have
supplement you can ever
So then
get.
you have energy to actually
I'm
shoot
so
your
energized in the
content
morning.
before noon. Right?
We're like up. I already did my workout. I had my breakfast. I had my coffee. And then Poppy gets up and I'm like, okay,
You've
good.
already done a good chunk of the first half of your day's
Yes.
work. Yeah.
And I'm feeling good. You sometimes are doing like the cold plunge in the morning early.
I'll go to the gym, do a cold plunge. Like everything that I needed to do was already done before the kids got up. So then throughout the day, we're like not having to stress. You set the tone for the day. We started implementing scriptures with Jaden, which I think really helped her because a lot of times she's frantic. She wakes up late.
I'm like 7:20. We're meeting to do our devotion, plan around it. So she comes out and she's like, I'm really looking forward to this. At first, it was really hard in the morning.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, just trying to get through. She's like, Mom, this is too early. Let's just do it for a week and then see how you feel, right? And we can adjust the time after. But she decided to go to bed earlier. So now she's
Because
up.
look, you are setting the example for her as like
Right.
a role model. And now she's going to be able to take those habits into like her future and her life.
And what has also helped us is after sunset, we have these light bulbs that make the house.
This is so you guys. I am dead
Hold
for
on.
you.
Blue light
I wanna
blocking
hear
light
this.
bulbs.
What?
Blue light blocking light
Blue
bulbs.
light
Before or
blocking.
after you guys are grounded.
Wait.
Grounded.
Blue
We
locking.
ground in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Could I do this as a lighting snob? Like I'm Mr.
Oh,
Orange
Lord,
lighting.
you've
I'm
officially.
Mr. Dim Orange lighting.
We're blocking the blue light because that is the artificial light that's telling your body to wake up. You're trying to do that right before bed, especially being on the screens. It's signaling to your body, that you need to wake up and go, when really that's when you should be taking down your nervous system. We've been doing that in Poppy's room. She has a little nightlight that's blue blocking as well. She has a little red light lamp that she can listen to her story before she goes to bed. She listens to a little audiobook.
Oh God, I love her. I want to eat her. Can we just side note?
She's so routine.
She's delicious.
She has like red light.
Yeah.
I'm done.
If she has to do anything, I'm like, you have to wear your red light glasses.
Gosh,
after sunset.
her and Amari,
They vibe so well.
so immediately when they met, it was like, okay, this is either going to be great or it's going to be like a two strong personalities.
Right.
I told her
besties.
today, I was like, Poppy's coming over. Okay, I want you to prepare mentally. Okay, get in the game.
She's
Last
so
time at the restaurant, you weren't your
excited.
best. We can do better.
Yes, she's so excited.
Poppy is just her own. Every day I'm like, where is she learning that from, or what is she saying?
She's amazing.
She keeps us on our toes, for sure.
Yeah,
She is
a little sponge.
hilarious. She's a force, but also I feel like when we met her, we were at the zoo. Like I could tell very much from the beginning. She's kind of like, I don't know you.
Right.
I need my space. And that's what that is. And I was like, I got you. I've been here before. I have 2 little girls. So it took I think it was 30 minutes in. And I was like, Poppy, I was like, do you like Moana? And then she was like, yeah, I like Moana.
She's like, okay,
that's my language.
And then Anthony was like, yeah, no, she loves Moana. And I was like, because we just got into Moana. And I was like, what's your favorite song? And then Anthony was like, tell me your favorite song from Maui. And then I put it on my phone. She literally is like, she comes up to me. She's like, you're welcome. Like right in my face. I was like, I love you so much.
After that, like she
I was
loved
like,
it.
we're buddies.
It's so funny because when we were here in Austin and we went to this brewery where all the kids can play, and everyone's so nice in Austin. That's what we're not used to from living in LA.
Oh, yeah.
How people just randomly talk. So she had fallen and I ran over to check. She was fine. It was just like a little scrape. But this couple had swooped in. They're like, is she okay? Is everything good? I'm like, oh yeah, she's fine. And then she gets up. She's like, who is that? Like, that's just a really nice couple. Everyone's so nice here.
Oh my gosh.
You could tell she wasn't even used to someone talking to her that.
Right.
She was like, excuse me, what's going on here?
Is that your friend? I'm like, no, that's just a little couple.
She's so aware and alert.
So funny.
Anyways, we went off on a Poppy tangent.
I know.
We just had to. Come on. She's the star here.
What does long-term success look like for both of you?
Ooh.
Our oldest is 6.5, or she's going to be 7 soon. And Mari's going to be 4, and Oliver just turned 1. And what I've realized is that we were in a season where we had little toddlers, and now we're in a season where we have kids. Now you've been through this with Jaden, but Teeny's a kid. And if I don't sign her up, or we don't sign her up for dance, gymnastics, piano, whatever it is, you name it, and take the time to do it, it doesn't happen for her. And for me growing up, we didn't have much, we didn't do much, we didn't have the money to do it, but I did play sports and I was at stuff every week. There was tons of stuff. And so in that regard, I didn't miss out. And I look back now and I'm like, man, my parents put in a ton of effort. So I think the season of life that we're in now, and talking about our short-term goals, is our mindset has shifted from what it was in the season before to now, how can we create a lifestyle for our kids in which they can thrive in this season of them being 5 to 12 or 13, right? It's those years are those formative years. I think that's the greatest gift you can give your kids, is a well-rounded toolbox, because when they go out into the world, they're going to want to reach into that toolbox all of a sudden and feel confident in new spaces and new places with new people and new challenges. And so the more you can, I think, create those things for them when they're young and help push them in things that maybe they say, I don't want to do this right now. It's you don't have to do it forever, but just try, you know? And so I think right now, what our mindset is focused on is let's get in a thriving environment for our kids to be kids and to live a childhood that is innocent and it's not being rushed too quickly in the world that we live in. And so I think that's been a big shift for us lately. And so when we're thinking long term, I think that's so important, because it's I want to set them up for personal growth and success. So when they step out when they're 18, they feel confident in doing many different things and speaking, in different places and accepting different challenges. And so I think it is a short-term answer, but it also has a long-term effect for our kids.
And I think too, for Stevie and I, we've also realized that when you talk about what makes you live a good life, having community today in 2024, it is so rare. It is so beautiful when you do have it, and you've got to go where you're going to grow. And so like finding those pockets of community for your family, whether it's like really making that time to cultivate a community around your kids. Each and every single kid is so individual. So like they have their own friends and things, but like connecting with those mothers, like for me, I grew up opposite of Stevie, where I actually didn't do tons. And I really had an amazing childhood, don't get me wrong, because I didn't know anything else. But like I learned how to ride a bike at 34 years old because my parents didn't know how to ride a bike. You know, like they came to this country as immigrants. But in a way, for me, I'm now at 34 years old, like Stevie said, going into my own little toolbox, and I'm looking in there and I'm realizing like what's missing and what maybe I needed to cultivate to have in there. Like I need to challenge myself as an adult. And so I'm motivated today to like do the things that actually feel uncomfortable, because that's what I think I now have to do in my mid 30s is like in order to grow, I have to find comfort and discomfort. And so I'm having to reach out to the moms. I'm having to sign up to be a room mom. I'm doing all of these little things, but it's really to grow this rich community and like real time connection.
But in
with
that,
people.
Well, I'll just add to that. What's cool about you with your bike journey, in that
this bike journey needs its own like
y'all, it
took me
like
a while. I was about to quit. Teeny taught me. My Valentina.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like I have been trying to get Teeny excited about riding a bike for like 2 years. And I just felt like we were missing. Like I got her a frozen bike, you know, for her 5th birthday party. And I was like, we are going to do this. Like, let's go. My dad taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to swim. He taught me how to throw a ball, all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm that dad, right? That's going to be me. She does not want to learn from me. She does not want to learn how to swim from me. Like she
I can't
is
teach
very. So with swimming, I had to be like, okay, we got to take her to swim class, and she's got to learn from them.
Just have a neutral.
Yeah. So she learned how to swim, and with this bike thing, she started getting so frustrated, y'all. And I remember one day, she was so mad she couldn't do it, and I just told her, I was like, I'm like sitting there getting frustrated too, but I was like, you know what? I was like, it's okay. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it today. And at that moment, she felt so much better because I wasn't putting any pressure on her whatsoever. She's already putting enough pressure on herself. I said, you know, it's okay. You don't have to do it. And she kind of just was like, when Tina gets upset, she goes like, she's like a snowball downhill, just keeps getting bigger and worse. But she just like stopped and was like, oh, I was like, yeah, it's fine. Let's just hang out. It's not a big deal. So then soon after that, Sazan starts trying to ride a bike and Teeny gets excited.
Yeah.
From the bike she didn't want to touch. She was so angry about it and it was like a pain point for her.
Yeah.
She starts picking up her bike and she starts like trying
doing
to ride
it with me.
And
like alongside me.
I know.
That.
And as Sazan is like going through the process, Teeny literally learns how to ride her bike. She gets enough courage and excitement.
Yes.
And I know. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, and Sal's over there trying. I'm like, dude,
yeah, that she learned the
like,
day that our daughter Valentina learned how to ride her bike. I was literally like about to throw in the towel, and I was like, "This is embarrassing." I don't know if it's the bike that Stevie got me or what. I was like, "My daughter's watching me," and I was just like, something told me, just watch her. I looked at her. I got out of my own head and I noticed, she was like, Mom, look. And I noticed what she was doing like with the handlebars. And I was like, oh, let me try using the handlebars to like really balance myself. And I remember watching her exactly and saying, I'm going to copy exactly what she's doing. And that was the first time I actually was able to pedal for at least 10 seconds without falling. And it ended up being this really heartwarming, sweet experience.
I love what you touched on. How you grow is by being uncomfortable. There's a lot of things in life where we become complacent with what we're doing. And then you start to look back and wait, I'm not really being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's just because you're getting so used to just doing the same thing over and over again. And for us, I feel like even our health journey, and for me, going to the gym in the mornings, waking up at 5:30, I don't want to do that. That's uncomfortable. Okay, I need to do that. And it's
building that muscle.
And it's just changed my mentality on everything, where even with the podcast, when we were kind of thinking about doing it together, I love to listen to people. I can have conversations, but if we put in a group of 5 or 6 people, you will barely hear from me.
Yeah, you're more of the behind the scenes guy.
I like to analyze.
You must be a 5 Enneagram. Is he the investigator?
Are you the observer?
Yes.
I'm just very like I'm an introvert. The podcast thing is scary for me, but
I love that.
I need to feel uncomfortable because I know that's how I'm going to grow. And 20 episodes down the line, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, I can play a part in a conversation now. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That mentality is so, I think, vital for just like a rich life.
Yeah.
Because you'll be satisfied from the results because you're like, well, I stepped up to the challenge, you know, and we felt that any time in our life that has anything that's yielded a lot of good has come out of hard. And that's what we talk about a lot in our book is just like these scenarios where it's like, oh God, like you led me to the hard thing. Like you're actually leading me through the hard thing to get to the good.
Right.
And so like,
There's a
if I
pattern,
believe that this is good for me and it's right, then I'm going to sign up for it. Just like you said, I'm going to sign up for doing these hard things first because the good things will come after. And I think so many people just have it reversed. Like, I just want to be happy.
Right.
And it's like, well, you're not going to be happy. Yeah. If you're not facing those things. And it is easy even now in our lives to, again, have to sign yourself up for those things. You get complacent. You're kind of like, well, I already did hard stuff. It's like, no, again, you have to show up. And I don't think that will ever stop. I think even when you're an old man, you're an old woman, you will need to step up and say, I want to do something uncomfortable because I want to live.
You want to grow.
I want to feel alive. You know?
It's like Jim. Remember Jim Quick? We had him on our podcast years ago, and I love him. He's such a brainiac. And he said, do the hard things now and life gets easier. Do the easy things now and life gets harder.
So true.
And I think you can start that at any age, any time, any season of life that you're in. And I think too, like knowing when to give yourself grace, because when we were in the thick of the postpartum fog season, like new baby, we knew that priorities were going to change. However, health, for example, has always been important to us. It was just going to look different in that season. And so we had to be able to give ourselves the grace of like being new parents and just kind of reprioritizing what those workouts were going to look like, if any, really. And also reprioritizing our health and what it looked like. And then now that we're in a season where all of our kids are kind of getting a little bit older, I'm having more freedom, not breastfeeding anymore. I'm like, okay, great. I can pick back up again.
You guys said that going away and doing the 6-month review, I think planning and having those ideas and envisioning where you see yourself in 6 months, right? Because if you think, I want my kids to be outside every day as part of their upbringing, well, let's look back at the last 6 months. Okay, Poppy was in her playroom a little bit too much. She loves to stay inside. So in the next 6 months, part of the routine has to be that we have to go outside every day as a family.
Switch it up. Yeah.
We have to do that. So I love just seeing where you want to be at and implementing those small changes at home to where your kids are a part of it, but really evaluating where you want to be. Are you not where you want to be?
So
and
good.
Or are you happy with it and you want to make it a little bit better?
Yeah.
It's having that open communication, coming together as one, and then supporting each other to the goals that you want to be.
Faith plays a significant role in your lives. How has it influenced your decisions and the way that you approach challenges?
Ooh, how much time do you have?
Okay.
That's the quick version.
Man, I think, God and centering our life around God has become more and more vital, even though it's not perfect. Like Rick Warren said, the direction of your heart, not the perfection. Our direction is like, God, like, what do you have for us? What's your will for our life? And how can we step into that a little bit more each day? Like, how can I grow to be this person that you can really use in this world for good? One big thing is just like you were doing with Jaden is like reading your scripture in the morning or at night. And like for us, it's like really realizing like praying together at night, like we always pray over our kids individually before they go to bed, but then us also together in bed, like praying. And I think the biggest thing is in our household, as a man, I felt God impress upon me over the last like 6 months, especially the vitality of we're going to go to church, like putting all these things in place, even if it's like, Sazan's like, I'm tired. Okay. Yeah. Maybe you're exhausted, but I'm going to go. Because I even saw there's a stat that says like if the dad goes to church like consistently, even if mom doesn't go, 70% of the time his kids follow suit. And so that just like hit me. I was like, I need to be a better leader in this, whether anyone's following me or not, and it starts with
seeing,
it starts with that. And so it's like setting the precedent there, which I'm still working on. It spreads into our entire family. And so like God has to be at the center because if he's not, then you're kind of aimlessly floating and you kind of get caught up in the ways of the world instead of being anchored in his word, which is true. And so I think for Sazan and I, God truly is at the center. And so in everything we do, whether it's a big move or a small move, we always submit it to his leadership, because I'm like, God, you got the aerial view. You see everything. You see, years down the road, things I cannot see. And so even with the season that we're in right now, considering moving and all of that stuff, it's like a very crazy time. And we're like, wow, we're from Texas. We always envisioned ourselves, I guess, just being here, but that might not be the way it goes. And so I'm like, all right, God, like I have ideas of what I want, but like, I want you to kind of green light or lead in this, because I know that whatever you do, it's going to be good. And so I think just trusting him with all things, he always leads you somewhere good.
I'm, of Middle Eastern background. I didn't grow up, understanding that you could have a relationship with God. I didn't understanding that until, I met Stevie in college, and I was going through my darkest hour of my life. And it was amazing how God really started to reveal himself to me. My whole life changed because of just the curiosity I had, wondering, is there really a God up there that can hear me, who's heard me my whole life? Does he see me? And going straight to the source and saying, like, God, I want to know what it's like to be fully alive. Who are you? Show yourself to me. I faced that question in my early 20s, and my whole life changed after that. And so for me, navigating as what started off as a fashion and beauty influencer, there's been times where I've tried to put God in a box and say, like, well, I can't bring him into this space because I have to focus on this brand and my beauty. And then I realized, you can't contain God. You really can't keep him in a box. And so I started to feel just my own personal tug in the heart that was like, people need to know. They need to know this story. They need to know what God is doing in my life. And the truth is I feel like we're living in a world today where people feel like they don't need God. And I get it. I really do. And there's a lot of people who say they follow God and know God, and then you see the backlash of that. But the truth is
recently heard a really good sermon we went through, and it was called Faith Without Action. The people that constantly say that they believe in God, and then you see their life and you're like, none of this aligns with. So people that don't know him are thinking this is what God's like, but it's nowhere near.
Exactly. And what I would just want to say to any of those people is, like, I've even learned this, is that God is so much bigger than the failures of people. He's bigger than deception. He's bigger than the insincerities that we see all day, every day, right? Even in our own faith and in our church. And I'm just learning too, as an influencer today, whatever that means, I'm learning that authentically just being myself is just sharing that part just as naturally as I can. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be a pastor or a missionary to be able to share the stories and the work that God is doing in your life, because you never know who it might touch. And this guy sitting here to my right is that person who once upon a time ago, when my spirit was so thirsty and so hungry for answers and just searching, he became that food for my soul by just sharing his own personal faith journey without forcing anything upon me, without being judgy. And it changed my life for the better. And so who would I be, right, when I look at myself in the mirror, to be like, how are you going to hold out from sharing just the goodness of God and just sharing what he's doing in your life wholeheartedly? And so I feel like you could really do no wrong when you're just sharing the authentic love that is God. And so I just hope and pray that the platform that God has given us, that we can continue to use it for his glory and his good, whatever that may look like. And that's what we're learning about our faith journey right now, is just how to just bring God into it. And it's not about religion. It's just about relationship.
And I love how you're saying that submitting and praying about things. That's what a big part of me and Anthony, when we're making a decision, is it sounds like there's such small things, like, why would God even be concerned with this right now? But for example, we had put an offer on a house, I think it was last year, that, because right now we're in a rental house, we're redoing our other house. We're living in a rental, and we thought, instead of living in a rental house, why don't we just buy a house and we can then maybe rent it afterwards? It seemed like a really good idea in our mind. And we put an offer and we prayed about it. We're like, look, if we get this, we know this is where we're supposed to be. And we really want God's will, and we don't want to be somewhere we're not supposed to be. it was a hard no because they had gotten, it was just this whole thing where it's like, this is a clear cut no. And it's just like that piece of it was a closed door, but we didn't feel stressed or anxiety about it because we're like, okay, God doesn't want us there.
God
like, we
walked
prayed about
before
it.
you. Yeah.
We're done. So we're like, oh, we had such a good peace about it. We didn't get it, but we felt like, okay, like let's wait for the next thing and see what happens. And
I think that's the biggest thing with us is when you try to plan too much, it's like, well, God already has a plan for you. And
what's the Proverbs where it says, a man plans his life, but God directs his steps.
Yeah.
I might be quoting it wrong.
No, that's exactly right. I totally agree with you. I like, and the way I visually think of that is like God literally places your step. So like something that you're saying like was a step in your life. It wasn't like it's like this is one thing, but I think of it as like literally he's like, no, your foot's gonna go here.
Right.
And so many people, I think this is really valid for this conversation. So many people, even people that claim to follow God, they're so scared of like stepping out and making a mistake in their life. They're dreadfully afraid of
failure.
this.
Yeah.
It's not just failure, it's like being off course. And I totally get that. I am also that person. I'm like, I want to be where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like we just talked about this with my brother and sister. It's like, have you guys heard about the 7 primal questions?
No.
It's great.
It's pretty crazy. You take this test.
It's deep.
It's super deep. There's like, am I loved? Am I wanted? Am I secure? Like there's like 7. I think there's 7, 5 or something. So anyways, mine was, am I secure? And Sazan was like, I don't think that's yours. But I think that's mine most deeply because I'm always like, I want to be in where I should be. I want to be in the right place.
The security thing, yeah.
Like, God, I don't want to be like far from you. I want to be where I should be doing what I should be doing. And so I'm somebody who struggled with that fear of like, am I going to go down the wrong path?
Right.
Am I going to start something with good intentions and end up somewhere I shouldn't be? But it's like God will always work those things together for your good. And so that's why I go back to that, the direction of your heart, not the perfection. It's like, well, God,
show me, what am I supposed to do?
I've got these gifts that I could use and I want to start using them. He's going to place your steps and I've seen that. And so I think you can really live your life with joy and without regret when you view it that way.
And God is always speaking to us even in his silence.
And we're talking about that with Jaden right now because she's applying to schools. She has her idea of the school. So I'm telling her, okay, let's just start praying about this now, right? So you're going to submit your school request. You have these idea of like, where are you going to go? But you don't know where God wants you to be because those are going to be your friend circle. Maybe you'll meet your potential spouse there. Yeah. Like you want to be in the area where God's like, no, this is where I see you. And this is going to be the best for your life.
The best.
Where can people find you online?
So you can find me on Instagram, just my name, @Sazan. It's like Satan, but with a Z.
Perfect.
My mom literally goes, hey, Satan, how's your day today? I'm like, Mom.
Autocorrect?
Yes. I'm like, Mom. Anyway, the Sazan. You'll find me on IG.
If you find Sazan, you can pretty much find everything else. You can,
and then tell them about our book, of course.
Yes.
Like where
I think, too. That's something like near and dear to our heart that we launched soon after Oliver was born. Bad timing for marketing. Bad timing. But a lot of the stuff that we're all passionate talking about is in that book. You know, it's called A Real Good Life, and it's just about like real life and how it can be so good.
You can get it anywhere where you get books, and we're just so grateful, obviously, to be here with you guys. Congrats on this podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Long Game. Please make sure to leave a review if you're enjoying this episode. Would love your feedback.
You can find us on Instagram at Brittany Xavier or Anthony Xavier. Same with TikTok. And new episodes launch every Thursday.
We'll see you guys next time.
And we're in it for the long game.